Alrighty, booktube, Nikki here with my top books of 2015. I'm gonna do this nice and quick because it's a lot of books and it's really hot and this video is spectacularly late. There is an explanation. I planned to make this, but then like on New Year's Day pretty much, I woke up with this weird eye pain and I freaked out, and because I'd watched 3 seasons of Grey's Anatomy, I was so sure that there was like a tumor in my brain pressing against my eye and I was gonna need McDreamy to cut me open, but it was fine. I got all sorts of scans and things and they all came back clear. And after all of that, my doctor asked, "Hey, do you read a lot?" Because it turned out to be that I just strained some muscles around my eye from reading. So anyone that tells you that reading isn't, you know, hardcore, well, throw a book at them. But anyway, these are my top books of 2016. I tried to narrow it down to 10. I did try and do a top 10. I did a top 10 in 2014, but I only read 52 books in 2014. In 2015, I read 101, so narrowing it down was kind of impossible. So I did pick 15, but these are like the top 15. I'm going to start with the one comic book that is on my list. I didn't read a lot of comic books or graphic novels last year, which is a bummer because I love graphic novels. I have a bunch here behind me. But the comic book that made my top 15 list was Runaways. This is volume 3, but any of them are good. This is a series by Brian K. Vaughan, who you probably know from like Saga and maybe Why the Last Man if you're a graphic novel comic book reader. And this is a series from the mid-2000s. This is an excellent like entry point, and it's no tights and capes. So the kids who are the main characters, they basically discover that their parents are supervillains. So they run away, they all take off, they've got people after them, and they have run-ins with other superheroes. This one is the 3rd volume. These are the giant volumes, complete collection volumes that Marvel's bringing out. In this one we see Captain America and the Punisher, and it also crosses over with Civil War, which is obviously relevant because that's happening, and Young Avengers as well. If you want to check out just the first volume, not the first giant volume, the first like normal sized volume, which is about probably 5 or 6 issues or something, it's called Pride and Joy, and I really recommend it. You can probably get it from your library. Next up, I have 2 memoirs of 2 people that I think are spectacularly amazing, and the first is We Should Hang Out Sometime by Josh Sundquist. Josh Sundquist is just awesome. I discovered him through YouTube because he makes YouTube videos, but he's also like a Paralympic champion and he has awesome Halloween costumes every year, and he is an amputee, so he has 1 leg, and he's also an author. This is a really fun book. Basically, Josh got to 25 years old and he realized that every girl he'd ever wanted to date or approached or asked out had rejected him, and he went back and found out why. He literally went back and contacted these girls that he met when he was like a teenager. In the book he tells the story of like what happened, and it's actually really cool. It reads like a young adult book and it's just totally a lot of fun, so I recommend it if you're wanting to check out a fun memoir. Josh Sundquist actually is publishing a book, I'm not sure when, he's publishing a novel, which is pretty exciting, and I'm totally keen for that. The other memoir that I read is Yes Please by Amy Poehler. Can we just talk about how amazing Amy Poehler is? She's my fave. I love Amy Poehler. She's just a really positive, awesome person who's also hilarious and clever. And I love her YouTube channel called Smart Girls. If you haven't checked that out, you totally should. The first YA contemporary on my list is We All Looked Up by Tommy Wallach. Is it Wallach or Wallach? I'm pretty sure it's Wallach, but I pronounced it Wallach when I first got this book, so whoops. This is a book about a bunch of teenagers, 4 of them I believe, and they all go to the same high school. It's told through multiple perspectives. Basically what happens is scientists discover that there's a sort of 2 out of 3 chance that the Earth will be struck by a giant asteroid, and everyone will die. So it's kind of like Breakfast Club at the end of the world. But I love this book so much. When I first read it, it was the start of the year, and I was like, I'm gonna be really critical of every book that I read, and I'm only gonna give 5 stars for the very best. So I gave this a 4.5 because I was like, yes, critical. But then like in August, I was like, I'm still thinking about this book that I read in like March. So it's stuck with me all that time, and I actually just want to reread this for the sole purpose of highlighting all the amazing quotes in here, like all the amazing things that he says. It's like that scene in The Breakfast Club where they're all sitting around in a circle and they're talking about what it's like to, you know, be a teenager and parents don't understand you and stuff, and the catch-22s of being a teenager, and everyone who watches that understands that because we've all been there, and I feel like this whole book is that. Like you just relate to every single character and everything that is being said, and it's so spectacular, and I just think that more people should read this because I haven't heard of enough people reading this. Next I have one that I haven't seen on BookTube really at all, and it is an Australian novel, and I wasn't going to read it, but then my book club was reading it and I was like, oh fine, and it was bigger than I thought it was going to be when I bought it, and I was like, guys, why? But then I read it and my heart shattered, and I love it so much, and it's a really good piece of Australian writing, and that is Jasper Jones by Craig Silvey. It follows a boy named Charlie who lives in a small country town, and he's kind of bookish and nerdy, whereas everyone else is kind of obsessed with cricket and works doing hard labor and that sort of stuff, so he doesn't fully feel like he fits in, and there's a boy named Jasper Jones who is basically the troublemaker of the town. Like, everything just gets blamed on him, and one night Charlie's trying to go to sleep and Jasper Jones knocks on his window and is like, dude, you have to come with me right now, and he does. He goes with him, and then I'm not going to tell you what happens next because it is crazy and you just don't expect anything that happens in this book, and it's just so good on so many levels. The relationships are awesome, the friendships are really cool in this book, and it just feels like so lovely to read, and it's so moving and great, and I just love it, and you should love it too. You should go read it. Moving on to the science fiction category, we have The Martian by Andy Weir. Lots of people read this book this year. It's amazing. The movie's also amazing. It's hilarious. I don't know if it's quite a comedy though, but apparently the Golden Globes think so. But for a book with this much science to get me this into the story, that's a miracle. I like that it was pretty uplifting and had a kind of a light tone, despite the like heavy idea that this guy is stuck completely alone on a whole planet. If you like the book, I also recommend checking out the movie because it's good times. This next book, I actually had to boot a book off my list because I had made my list of 15. It was all set and done, penciled in, and then I read another book and I was like, nope, someone's gotta go. And that book was Lumen by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is just amazing. I'm sure that you've heard about this. It looks spectacular, by the way, because look. What? I'm not gonna take the whole dust jacket off because that's way too much effort. This is like sci-fi on toast. There's so many different layers to this story, and they're all amazing and great. I read this whole series this year and it's amazing and great, so I could put every book, but I'm just gonna put the last one because I feel like it was a perfect finale to a wonderful series, and that is Winter by Marissa Meyer. I was a little bit nervous because it's fairy tale retellings. I haven't read many of those, but I was instantly in love with the series. I love so many things about it, and I really love Marissa Meyer's writing. I think it's great, and I can't wait to read whatever she brings out next. Marissa Meyer was an author that I'd never read before, and so was this next one, which is pretty much criminal because everyone raves about this guy. And I read one of his books, and I can't wait to read every one of his books now. And the book that I read was Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. This is a really fun book. I love Brandon Sanderson's humor and his writing, and I want to read some of his fantasy. I know the Mistborn series is like super popular, so I will get onto that eventually, but I need to get onto the sequels to this first because the second book's out and I'm pretty sure the third book is coming out very soon. It's just a really fun book and I had a blast reading it. The world's awesome. I have to see what happens next. Speaking of awesome worlds and authors that everyone's read, I read Bready Player 1 by Ernest Cline. This is another really just fun book with lots of like fun technology and stuff. Video games, lots of 80s references. I'm big into nostalgia. Big. Like, I have a cardboard cutout of Voltron. Actually, no, I can't reach it. It's too big for me to get out right now. My first major purchase after getting a full-time job was a Nintendo 64 with 4 refurbished controllers with new little joysticks, so no one can be like, oh, I lost Mario Kart, but I had the crap controller. No, there is no crap controller, because this is serious business. Moving now into fantasy land. If you have watched my channel, you've probably heard me mention the Skullduggery Pleasant series by Derek Landy, because I love the Skullduggery Pleasant series. It's my favourite series. But it finished in 2014, so I can't have any Skullduggery Pleasant books on my list. So you may be thinking, what is she going to put now? What's she going to do in that gap? Well, the joke's on you, because Derek Landy wrote another book. What? Yes, he did. And that book is Demon Road, with the shiniest cover known to man. Makes it really difficult to angle so as not to blind myself. There we go, that'll do. I'm really excited for this trilogy. Each book is being released 6 months after the previous, so the next book is coming out in like March or something, so if you want to hop on a series, this one's a good one. It's about a girl named Amber who discovers that her family has a bunch of secrets. Also, her parents are trying to kill her. awkward, so she has to go on the run. And it's kind of like, it's like a series of Supernatural in a book, pretty much. She goes on a road trip with this guy who loves his car, and they just run into supernatural creatures, and people try and kill them a lot. Yep. That sounds like a series of Supernatural, right? I love Amber, the main character. I feel like she's such an important character. She's a teenage girl who's overweight and not super confident in herself and has had really crap parenting. That doesn't look like crap parenting. They didn't, like, they fed her and everything, and they didn't, like, yell at her. They were just sort of absent. So I think it's an important character to have in young adult fiction, and I love her development in this first story, so I can't wait for the next two. Again, you've probably heard about this one on bunch of people's lists, but it's Queen of Shadows by Sarah J Maas. I really love this series. It basically made me not scared of fantasy because I get really intimidated by massive worlds. It's same in video games, right? Open world games scare me. Fallout 4 is terrifying because it's just so huge and I just can't, my tiny brain. I'm loving it though. But what this series does, it expands the world with each book. So I think this is a good place to start, not this book, the first book in the series, to kind of get into fantasy. I really love this series. I finally finished a series last year that I had been reading for quite some time, and I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. I think because it's finished and so no books are coming out. But that was Artemis Fowl. This book is The Last Guardian, which is the last book in the series, and it's by Owen Colfer, and I just really, really loved the way this series ended. The couple of books before this I felt weren't as strong as the others in the series, but this book was a perfect ending to the story. I really love all the characters. This is about a young boy, I think he's like 11 or 12 in the first book, and he is a boy genius. He's kind of like a mix of Sherlock and Moriarty because he's super smart, but he's also a little bit evil. He finds out that fairies exist, and then he extorts the fairies for gold. My fear after reading the first book back when I read it was that there wasn't going to be any character development, like it was just going to be him being evil or him turning good at the end of the first book or whatever, but this series blew me away with the development of the characters. The only book that I don't have a physical copy of because my sister borrowed it and I'm too lazy to go find it is Rubble Bell by Rachel Hawkins. It's described as Buffy meets Legally Blonde. Harper Price is the main character, and her narration is hilarious because she's like this, you know, kind of a little bit uptight, type A personality Southern belle who ends up getting these guardian powers and having to protect this guy she doesn't like. More superpowered Southern belles, please. This last book, I kind of was tossing up between putting two series in here, but they're all in the same world, so I figure I'm just gonna throw them in together. That's The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. This is the first book in the Heroes of Olympus, but I also finished the Percy Jackson series, which I loved. I loved all of these. I love Rick Riordan. I want to read all of his books. It's one of those books where you want to like be in that world. You want to go to Camp Half-Blood. You want to be special. So hopefully that was 15 books. Like I say that I'll check in editing, but I don't think I will. Anyway, let me know if these books were on your list, or what your list entailed, or what you're having for lunch. I have no idea. Thinking chips, because why not? Oh, I think I have chicken nuggets. Yes, chicken nuggets. Alright, well, I'm gonna go eat some chicken nuggets. But in the meantime, you should tell me what your shiniest book is in the comments below. Because so many of my books are so shiny. Look. I am glistening in the light. I think I'm gonna go drink some water before I have a heat stroke. Cool beans. Cool beans.